They say you never forget the day someone tries to break you. For me? That day started with coffee, a smile, and a folder full of good news. And ended with a man half as smart trying to shove me out like I didn't build the floor he stood on. Let me ask you something, have you ever been so disrespected at work, you had to just sit there and swallow it, while everyone watched? Yeah. If you've ever been talked down to, humiliated, or made to feel invisible, drop a comment. I read every one. And if this story hits close to home, hit that like button. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it. My name's Martha Hamilton. I spent 15 years at Halcyon Tech. I survived every merger, every budget cut, every realignment from people who read more business books than they did spreadsheets. I built client pipelines from scratch. Held on to million-dollar contracts when newer teams fumbled them. I trained half the rising stars they brag about now. And I never once made it about me. Then came Jeffrey Adams. Fresh MBA. Expensive watch. A handshake that made you feel like you owed him something. He'd been with the company 6 months when they made him my manager. Said he had vision. Said he understood modern culture. What he didn't understand was work. Or people. It was a Monday, like always. Weekly strategy meeting. I brought a presentation showing how my team had landed the Wexler account 3 months ahead of schedule and under budget. That was a huge deal. Should have been a win for everyone. I'd barely finished the first sentence when he leaned back in his chair, loud enough for the room to stop breathing. You're not here to give speeches, Martha. Stay in your lane. Some people looked away. Others chuckled. Angie Joyce, one of his little followers, covered her mouth and smiled like it was entertainment. I ignored it. Kept going. Tried to keep my voice steady. But inside, something cracked. Then he said it. Just loud and clear, like he was reading it off a billboard, you're outdated. This company's future doesn't include dead weight. And just like that, he fired me. In front of the whole team. No warning. No performance review. No conversation. He smiled while he said it, like it was personal. Like he enjoyed it. Told HR to deactivate my badge. Told security to help me collect my things. I didn't even get a box. Just a plastic bag and a forced apology from the poor kid working front desk. No thank you. No handshake. Just eyes on me as I walked out of the building I'd poured 15 years into. Not one person said a word. Not even Erica. And I don't blame her. Jeffrey had a grip on everyone like fear was company policy. They say dignity is quiet. That day, I stayed quiet. But I didn't leave empty-handed. You see, Jeffrey didn't know something very important. And soon, he was gonna find out real leadership doesn't need a title. It just needs the right moment. It's strange, isn't it? How life can pull the rug out from under you, just to hand you the keys to the whole damn building. 3 days after Jeffrey fired me, I turned 45. No party. No cake. Just a heavy quiet in my apartment and a bottle of red I didn't really want to open. I had planned to take the day off, catch a matinee, maybe wander around the lake. Instead, I just sat in silence. On the couch. In pajamas. Feeling like I'd been erased. That's when the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was a delivery mistake. But when I opened the door, there she was, Nicole Matthews, our family's lawyer. Sharp as ever. Always in beige suits. The kind of woman who made you sit up straighter just by walking into the room. She handed me a navy envelope with gold lettering and said softly, "Happy birthday, Martha. Your aunt wanted you to have this today. Not a day earlier." Then she smiled, genuine, knowing, and walked away. I didn't open it right away. Just held it for a while. Let my fingers run along the embossed initials, T.W. Teresa Washington. My aunt. My mother's older sister. She never had kids, never married. But she taught me more about self-worth than anyone else ever did. When I was young, she used to sneak me business books wrapped in candy wrappers. Make 'em think you're just a sweet old lady, she'd whisper. Then blow their damn minds. She passed away 2 years ago. Left a small fortune behind and a reputation most Wall Street men still wouldn't admit she earned. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the envelope. Inside the envelope, there were 2 things, a letter and a legal document, heavy stock paper, gold seal, real deal official. I opened the letter first. The handwriting was neat. Her style. Confident, no nonsense. Each line hit harder than the last. Dear Martha, if you're reading this, it means you've turned 45. Which also means I'm not around to hand this to you in person. But that's all right. You always liked finding your own way. You've spent your life building others. Holding them up. Letting louder voices take credit. You were never the one to interrupt a meeting just to be heard, because you didn't need to. And yet, they still didn't see you. I did. And I made sure you'd be seen when it mattered most. I was one of the first investors in Halcyon Tech, back when it was 3 people and a broken printer. I never sold my stake. I held on. And when I rewrote my trust, I placed every single share in your name. All 36%. It was placed in a blind trust with a release trigger set to your 45th birthday. I wanted you to have it when you needed it most. You don't just deserve a seat at the table, Martha. You own the table. Flip it over if you have to. With love and fire, Aunt Teresa, I had to put the letter down. My hands were shaking. Not from surprise, but from the weight of everything I'd carried for years. Every time I was passed up. Every time someone took credit. Every time someone like Jeffrey talked over me, talked down to me, while I sat on the power they didn't even know existed. The legal document made it official. 36% ownership. Full voting rights. Transfer completed. All filed, notarized, locked in. I sat on the floor of my living room, bare feet curled under me like I was a kid again. And I cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just this steady stream of silent tears that felt like release. Not because I had power now. But because finally, someone had believed I deserved it. And they planned for it long before I even realized how much I'd need it. Turns out, while Jeffrey was polishing his LinkedIn headlines, I held 1/3 of the company in my name. And the best part? He didn't know. Not yet. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and poured myself that glass of wine. For the first time in days, I slept through the night. Because tomorrow? I wasn't going job hunting. I was going to reclaim what was mine. You don't always come back with a roar. Sometimes, you come back with a notebook. 2 days after reading Aunt Teresa's letter, I met Nicole Matthews at the same mahogany-paneled office where she'd once finalized my parents' will. This time, there was no paperwork to review. She just poured 2 cups of coffee and waited for me to speak. I placed the trust letter on the table. She glanced at the seal, then looked me dead in the eye. So, she said, what do you want to do? Before I could answer, the door opened, and in walked Marco Hogan. Now Marco wasn't flashy. No loud suits. No cufflink flexing. He was one of those men who kept his name off headlines but always had a chair at the table. He'd known Aunt Teresa. Trusted her. And more importantly, he respected me. If you want to take your seat, he said, gently but firmly, we can call a vote. I sipped my coffee, staring out the window. Downtown Chicago buzzed with people moving like nothing had changed. But I had. Not yet, I replied. Let's give them time to get comfortable. Marco smirked, nodded slowly. Let them hang themselves with their own rope first? I smiled. Exactly. See, power doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches. That week, I didn't announce anything. No legal letters. No emails. No surprise meetings. I just showed up. At coffee shops near the office. At lunch spots where my old coworkers still gathered. I called it catching up. They didn't question it. And if they did? They were too polite, or too curious, to say anything out loud. Over chai lattes and shared memories, I started piecing it together. Erica Mason, one of the sharpest analysts I ever worked with, had been passed over, again. Not because she wasn't good. But because Angie Joyce, the junior analyst who wore ambition like perfume, had somehow landed a director title. She doesn't even know how to run a projection model, Erica whispered. Jeffrey calls her his growth hire. I call her his echo. Then there was Rosemary Padilla. God, that one stung. Rosemary had been an engineer since the early days, sharp mind, kind soul, always the last to leave and the first to own a mistake that wasn't hers. She filed an HR report 6 months ago, racial bias. Some of the execs made comments. One of them asked if she got the job through a diversity push. She had it documented. Names, dates, everything. You know what HR did? Buried it. Told her it was being looked into. Then stripped her of team lead duties the next quarter. And now? She was in a back office running diagnostics. No team. No voice. I didn't react. Not in front of them. I nodded. I asked questions. I listened. And when I got home, I wrote everything down. I started spotting patterns. The women who spoke up? Silenced. The workers who questioned things? Transferred. The quiet ones holding departments together? Ignored. Meanwhile, the exec team bloated with Jeffrey's favorites. Loud. Entitled. Polished. All buzzwords, no backbone. They were building a culture of mirrors, just enough sparkle to distract the board from the cracks underneath. They thought they erased me. But I was just switching pens. Every story they told themselves. That I was weak. That I was replaceable. That I would just disappear quietly. It gave me time. Time to gather receipts. On the 6th day, I returned to Nicole's office with a folder full of notes. Is this enough? I asked. She flipped through a few pages. Whistled low. This, she said, is a resignation letter waiting to be signed. Marco leaned forward. You ready to step into that room? I nodded once. Good, he said, sliding a formal notice of a shareholder meeting across the table. Because your silence? Just ended. They fired me on a Monday. By the next Monday, I wasn't coming back for a job. I was coming for the boardroom. And this time, I was sitting at the head of the table. They say the best revenge is success. But for me? It wasn't revenge I was after. It was the truth, spoken in a room where people were finally forced to hear it. The board meeting was set for 10 a.m. sharp. Topic: Executive Leadership Review. But everyone thought it was a formality. A quarterly report dressed up as accountability. No one expected a storm to walk through those doors. I arrived 10 minutes early. No entourage. No fanfare. Just me, in a navy blue suit I bought 2 years ago and never wore. The one I kept in the back of my closet, waiting for the day I'd be seen for what I really was. As I stepped out of the elevator, the receptionist's eyes widened. She started to speak but stopped. I smiled. Don't worry, I said. I'm expected. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. You could feel it in the air, like the moment before thunder. The double glass doors to the boardroom loomed ahead. Behind them, the same men who watched me get escorted out like I was a security risk. And Jeffrey. I opened the door. Chatter stopped mid-sentence. A few board members turned in their chairs. Others blinked like I was a ghost. Jeffrey Adams stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, mid-flow with one of his buzzword presentations. He froze. "Martha," he said, with a forced chuckle. "This meeting isn't for ex-employees." I set my folder down at the head of the table. Adjusted the chair. Met his eyes. "You're right," I said. "It's not for ex-employees." Pause. "It's for owners." Silence fell like a dropped mic. Every face in the room shifted. Eyes darted from me to Jeffrey to Laurel Rutherford, the board chair, then back to me. I opened the folder slowly. Laid out the trust document, the share certificate, and the transfer confirmation. Gold seals. Notarized. Verified. Laurel reached for the papers. "Read them carefully." Her fingers paused at my name. After what felt like a lifetime, she looked up. "It's valid," she said. Her voice wasn't shocked. It was measured. Serious. "Martha Hamilton holds a 36% stake in this company. Effective as of her 45th birthday." You could hear a pin drop. Jeffrey's jaw clenched. He stepped forward like a man grasping for control that wasn't there anymore. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "This has to be some kind of mistake." She was let go. I turned to face him fully. "And now I'm letting you go," I said, calm as a glacier. I pulled out the second folder. One by one, I laid the pages out in front of the board. Internal audit results. Performance metrics. HR filings that never made it to resolution. "Let's talk about leadership," I said. Heads turned. "Let's talk about the 19% dip in department productivity after you replaced skilled managers with your friends. Let's talk about the inflated bonus reports. The ghost contractors. The hiring freeze you bypassed to give raises to people who lunch with you." I flipped to the next page. "Let's talk about Rosemary Padilla and her buried discrimination complaint. And Erica Mason, passed over for promotion in favor of someone who couldn't run a basic pivot table." Jeffrey looked around the room, desperate for backup. No one moved. "You're twisting numbers," he muttered. "This is personal." I didn't blink. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's responsibility. And I take mine seriously." A long pause followed. The weight of the words settled. The room shifted from discomfort to clarity. Jeffrey opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Laurel turned to me. "Martha," she said, "are you submitting a motion?" I nodded. I motioned to initiate immediate review of the executive leadership team, starting with the role of COO. "I second," came Marco's voice from across the room. Warm. Steady. Certain. Jeffrey's last defense cracked. "You can't do this," he spat. "You don't have the authority." I met his eyes one last time. "He fired me for not being bold," I said. "Now I'm bold enough to fire him." Laurel raised her hand. "All in favor?" Hands went up. More than enough. Jeffrey Adams had entered that room like he owned it. He left it with nothing but silence in his wake. No title. No shield. No chair at the table. Just a man who underestimated the quietest person in the room. And now? That room was mine. They say power changes people. But real power? It doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been, once no one else is speaking over you. After the vote, no one said much. No cheers. No handshakes. Just the slow, heavy shuffle of chairs against the polished floor as board members stood, processing what had just happened. Jeffrey didn't even argue. He just stared at the table like it had betrayed him. Like the numbers he used to weaponize had turned on him. And maybe they had. He packed his briefcase without a word, paused at the door like he wanted to say something, then thought better of it. Click. That door? It didn't just close behind him. It closed a chapter. Laurel Rutherford stood and adjusted her glasses. Then, softly, to the rest of the board, we will reconvene in 30 minutes to review the CEO transition plan. That was it. No resistance. No panic. Just silent agreement. Leslie Carr, the current CEO, approached me quietly in the hallway. She wasn't cruel. Just complicit. One of those leaders who thought being neutral made her fair. Who sat through every cover-up with a tilted head and a too tight smile. I think it's time I stepped aside, she said. I nodded. Not out of disrespect, but because we both knew she'd already stepped aside years ago. By end of day, the announcement went out. Jeffrey Adams, removed. Leslie Carr, stepping down. Board to appoint interim CEO. It didn't mention me by name. And I preferred it that way. The next morning, I came in early, before the sun. Before the Slack messages and email pings. Before anyone could treat me differently. I walked the halls. Past the department Erica Mason once led quietly from behind someone else's desk. Now, that desk had her name on it. Officially. Director of Data Strategy. She didn't cry. She just looked at the plaque like it finally matched what she'd known all along. I thought they'd never see me, she said, touching the edge of her new title. They did, I replied. They just chose not to look. And Rosemary Padilla? Her file didn't go back into some locked cabinet. It went straight to the ethics committee. I met her in a quiet conference room and laid it all out. The apology. The reinstatement. The choice to either return to her old team or build something new from scratch. She didn't hesitate. I want to build, she said. I nodded. Then let's get you some bricks. Word spread faster than I expected. In break rooms. In stairwells. On lunch walks and late-night Slack channels. You didn't need a press release when every whisper carried your name. Martha's back. She fired him. Just stood up and did it. HR actually opened the files this time. Erica got promoted. Rosemary's leading again. I didn't ask for any of it. But I heard it. The silence that used to hang in the office like fog. It had lifted. And in its place? Breath. Hope. That afternoon, I stood at the edge of the open-floor bullpen. I hadn't planned to say anything. I was never the speech type. But they were all there, half working, half watching. So I stepped forward. No mic. No podium. Just my voice. You don't need to scream to lead, I said. You just need to listen. A pause. A few heads nodded. Then they went back to work, like nothing changed, and everything had. That evening, as I sat at my desk, no nameplate, no portrait, just peace, my phone buzzed. Nicole Matthews. Text message, you didn't just fire him. You redefined the room. I stared at that screen for a while. Smiled. Then replied, we've still got work to do. Because this wasn't about a title. Or payback. Or even balance. It was about correction. About making space for the voices that had been muted for far too long. And I wasn't done. Not even close. You can fire a man in one day. But rebuilding a company? That takes time. It takes people. And it takes trust, the kind that can't be faked in memos or buzzwords. The morning after the board meeting, I came in early again. But this time, not to walk the halls. This time, I had work to do. Not the kind of work that shows up in a press release. The kind that happens in silence, one decision, one policy, one conversation at a time. The first change was HR. Not the department, the culture. I pulled every unresolved complaint off the shelf. Every pending file, every email flagged confidential. And I read every single one. Some made me angry. Some broke my heart. Some were written by people who'd already left, convinced no one ever saw them. And they were right. Until now. I met with Laurel Rutherford and the interim board and proposed a new structure, a rotating 3-member ethics panel. Anonymous reporting with mandatory response times. And a simple rule, no more hiding things under bureaucracy. The new HR director? Someone who had been overlooked twice, Teresa Washington's old mentee, now a licensed employment attorney with a spine of steel and a heart like granite wrapped in velvet. Then came the open-door meetings. Every Thursday at 3 p.m., no sign-ups, no waiting list. Anyone from any department could walk into the conference room, sit down, and say what they saw, what they needed, or what wasn't working. No titles. No agendas. Just stories. And solutions. I recognized the quiet builders. Erica Mason was given more than a promotion. She was given a team. A team that reflected her values, collaboration, consistency, integrity. Rosemary Padilla didn't just lead a new engineering project. She was now mentoring entry-level engineers, especially women of color. She named the initiative Code with Courage. And when I brought up the idea of announcing it company-wide, she just smiled and said, if they're watching the work, they'll see it anyway. Then we launched the Transparency Board. Literally. A massive digital screen in the heart of the building. Live updates. Hiring freezes and releases, diversity and inclusion metrics, budget allocations, promotion stats, everything that used to be whispered behind closed doors now lived in plain sight. The first line displayed in bold blue text read, "Trust is built in daylight." The shift didn't happen all at once. Revenue didn't jump overnight. There were no magazine covers. No breaking news alerts. But something did change. People smiled again. Not the fake smiles. Not the ones you put on to survive the day. The real ones, the kind that happen when you feel safe. The developers stayed late, but not out of fear. They ordered Thai food, coated in socks, and played music in the background again. One even wrote Martha Mondays on the dry erase board, with a doodle of my hair bun and glasses. I didn't erase it. In the break room, the same fridge where old managers used to hang passive-aggressive notes about missing yogurt now had a single yellow sticky that read, "Tell the truth." Martha's listening. Someone had drawn a tiny ear in the corner. I didn't know who wrote it. But I didn't need to. It was working. This wasn't revenge. This was repair. And you don't fix a culture with fire. You fix it with water. With care. With people. People like Erica. Like Rosemary. Like every intern, admin, junior dev, and frontline rep who gave more than they got, and kept showing up anyway. And now? Now they weren't just showing up. They were staying. Because this place? It finally felt like theirs. The office is quieter these days. Not because people are afraid. But because no one's yelling to prove they belong. It's been 3 weeks since I took my seat. Not a throne. Not a corner office made of glass and ego. Just a desk. Walnut. Clean. Steady. Mine. There's no nameplate. Never wanted one. Just a single photo frame tucked into the corner. My Aunt Teresa, mid-laugh, holding up a glass of wine, eyes full of warning and wisdom. I keep her there as a reminder that power handed to you is nothing. But power earned, power respected, that's something else. It's raining outside. One of those soft, silver drizzles that makes the city glow instead of drown. Chicago hums below like it always does, but up here, in this room, the quiet feels earned. I sit back, sip coffee, and flip through a pitch deck from one of our interns. Fresh ideas. Rough edges. But it's good. It's real. He's nervous, sits across from me, tugging his sleeves, avoiding eye contact. I don't interrupt. I let him speak. And when he finishes, I nod slowly and say, "Tell me what you'd change if no one said no." His eyes light up. That's the moment. That's what I came back for. They thought they could erase me. But really? They just cleared the board for me to rewrite it. So here's to everyone who's ever been humiliated, underestimated, or thrown out by someone who mistook confidence for arrogance. Let them. Let them laugh. Let them scoff. Let them send you home like you're nothing. Then show up. Calm, quiet, and holding the vote. Because it's not always the loudest voice in the room that changes things. Sometimes. It's the one that listens longest. Waits patiently. Moves when the moment is right. And rewrites everything. Have you ever been dismissed by someone who didn't even see you? If this story hit home, share your own moment below. Tell me about the time they counted you out, how you came back anyway. Because somewhere out there, someone's about to learn just how powerful quiet people really are. Black heart like. Comment. Subscribe. For every comeback that doesn't end in applause, but in transformation. Martha slides the intern's folder back across the table. Rewrite the second half, she says, but keep that last idea. It's yours, and it's good. He nods, stunned, smiling for the first time. As he leaves, she looks back at the city through rain-spotted glass. One hand resting on Aunt Teresa's photo. And the screen fades to black. Dove, this wasn't revenge. This was the rebuild. And it was just the beginning.